Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. This is the KZ ZEX Pro, also known as the Crinacle CRN, and these are my Honest Audiophile impressions. I want to thank KZ for providing the ZEX Pro for review. Do greatly appreciate it. KZ, you rock. Alright, so the ZEX Pro or the Crinacle CRN, these are identical IEMs. This is just the ZEX Pro version. Apparently the only differences are that you get a little bit of Crinacle branding on the CRN version, and he did lend his ears to the tuning of the ZEX Pro. If you don't know who Crinacle is, I'll put a link down below for his channel. Alright, so the ZEX Pro, it has an impedance of 25 ohms, sensitivity of 104 decibels, frequency response of 20 Hz to 40 kHz, and has a driver config of a electrostat driver, a dynamic driver, and a balanced armature. So it is a tribrid. The dynamic covers the bass, the balanced armature covers the mids, and the electrostat covers the treble. Very straightforward unboxing experience, nothing to speak of. You get one set of small, medium, and large silicone tips, which look like this. And then you also get a cable, which is very KZ, and your IEMs. Cable is okay for the price, not my favorite, but it's pretty typical KZ cable. And then here are your IEMs, very much a universal. Has a big, huge wing on it and a decent size nozzle. Good angle and length on it. They are a little bit on the chunky side, but overall I find that they fit okay, but comfort is not the greatest due to that wing. And so when they sit on my ears, in my ears, that wing just hits in the wrong spot, puts pressure right here, pulls down, and they become very fatiguing within about 30 minutes of listening for me. Maybe different for you, but for me, I can't wear these for very long. They're just uncomfortable and too large. The tips on them they're okay. The stock tips, they're adequate, but I found that the CTM Flexi tip fits my ears better, gives me a little bit more support, and didn't really change sonics whatsoever, but they just felt better in the ears. Speaking of how do they sound, the ZEX Pro is a V-shaped signature. They have a lot of sub bass. They are sub bass prominent, and they have recessed mids till you get to the uppers, and then it's elevation and gets to the treble. Around 8K, it just dips and goes down to about somewhere 13, 15K, and then it shoots back up and elevates. All right, so the bass on the ZEX Pro, it's okay. It's not the most impactful, even though it does have some sub-bass presence. It just seems light on impact. It has decent details and adequate resolution. The tone is okay. It's not the greatest bass, but it is pleasing, and it's going to keep your toe tapping, and it's just a little bit light on impact. I wish I had a little bit more body weight density and just a little bit more of impact thump to it. The mids, as I said, they are recessed, but they're not like in a cave. They're not so far back that everything else surrounds the mids and overpowers them. There's something to the mids. It's just not the most full. It's light on body, and they lack a little bit of note weight and density. They're a little light afoot, so to speak. And I find that the tone of them is okay, and I found that they are adequate with details and resolution. But there's a problem. 4K to 8K is way elevated. It is elevated beyond levels that it should be, and it becomes very aggressive and very intense, and they are shouty, and they're sibilant. They have a lot of sibilance to them, and it is not very well resolved, and it's very harsh. In that 4 to 8K region, they're just too elevated and just too dominant, and it's too much. And then once you get to 8K, it dips, it really rolls, and you get to, as I said, 12, 13K, 15K, and it elevates again, brings in a lot of energy and sparkle to the treble, but it brings in harshness, and it's just too elevated, and it just sounds unnatural. So everything from the mids forward just sounds unnatural on the ZEX Pro. To me, these are too light, too thin, and just lack body and cohesion. And overall, from the bass, the mids, and the treble, they're just not balanced whatsoever. There's just too many peaks, too many lumps, and too many dips, especially in the lower treble to upper treble regions. There's just a big dip there, and it just sounds unnatural. I kind of like them, but I don't. That 4 to 8K is just way too intense. Soundstage wise, they're decent. They got some nice width to them. They have decent depth and layering. They do okay with imaging. They're not the greatest out there, but they're adequate. They're an all right sounding earphone in the stage. Nothing really stood out, but to me, the thing that really stood out was the intensity of the 4 to 8K and the sibilance and that harshness. So tone and timbre. Tone and timbre is not natural on the ZEX Pro. It's too thin, it lacks body weight, and it lacks density. And it's just got a metallic tone to them. They just don't sound accurate. Instruments sound kind of close, but they just have a metallic twinge to them. And they just don't sound accurate and natural. But the biggest problem with the ZEX Pro, in my opinion, is resolution. You can get some nice detail retrieval between the bass, the mids, and the treble. But the problem is, it's just not resolved well. It's very harsh. It's very, They're just not a very smooth and pleasant sounding earphone. It's just very harsh. I did change to tips. I tried different ones, RHA dual densities, CTMs, JVC spiral dots, and several others, and nothing really helped. I tried all kinds of different sources, whether it be a super uber clean analytical type of sound or a warmer source, and nothing really helped. They did sound a little bit better on warmer sources, but a problem occurred there, and that was it thickened up the sub bass and the bass too much, and it became real dominant. Even though it kind of mellowed out and tamed that upper mids and lower treble region, it just unbalanced things even more. So the ZEX Pro is not a balanced, cohesive sounding IEM. They're an okay sound. They're a little bit on the thin side. And for $35, I mean, I could live with them, but I don't want to. For $35, you can do a whole lot better, in my opinion. You can get a TINHIFI T2. The TINHIFI T2 is way more accurate with tone and timbre, does a better job with detail retrieval, and is more resolving than the ZEX Pro. And it's just a more pleasant sound if you like a more analytical and neutral sound signature. The Blonde BL03 also is way better, has better definition in the bass, it is more controlled, has more body to it, more impact. The mids are more natural and accurate sounding, and the tone and timbre is just more true. And even though the Blonde isn't the best resolving IEM, it is better resolving than the ZEX Pro. Or you could go back to the original ZEX. The original ZEX, in my opinion, is actually more comfortable because it doesn't have that wing on the shell. And also the ZEX, even though it is more bassy and it is more bloated, it just sounds more fun and just a little bit more natural in tone and timbre, and it is not near as harsh in the resolution and it's just a more smooth and pleasing sound signature, even though it doesn't bring in the details like the ZEX Pro. But with all that being said, if you can save your pennies and get something even better, I would just go with the Triple Win XHBB Melee. The Melee, in my opinion, is just 100% better than the ZEX Pro. Better tone and timbre, better resolution, better detail retrieval, and just an overall pleasing sound signature overall that is more accurate and true versus the ZEX Pro. The ZEX Pro is adequate for its price tag of $35, but it's not very good. It's just outdone by so many others. Get yourself a T2 or a Blonde BL03, or save some pennies and get yourself a Melee. This has been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Speaking of next video, somewhere on the screen, subscription link, notification bell. If you haven't already, please check those off. Don't forget to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video. Also, check out the links down below for where you can purchase the ZEX Pro or the CRN if you are interested, or any of the other IEMs that were mentioned in this review. Also, there are ways that you can support the channel, contact the channel, follow the channel, all kinds of good stuff down below. Check out the links. And don't forget to enjoy the music, and honesty is the best policy.